Of things still with the airport fire. The folks that are out there right now, some folks may have noticed some plumes of smoke from the horizon, and that is not accidental, certainly. Right now, the airport fire has consumed 23,519 acres of vegetation, as well as some structures in the Ortega Mountains. The city has been largely spared from most of the damage, but certainly there's some communities. The El Caruso community was one of the big ones that was heavily impacted by the fire, and we're still waiting for final information as far as that goes, or confirmed information as far as that goes. Highway 74 was reopened a few days ago. There are delays as a result of the ongoing activity that is back there, and it's a pretty sad scene if you actually have driven back there. I encourage those who have work or business over there to plan accordingly, plan for some extra time as fire crews are still actively working those areas. There are CAN crews which are engaged on the northern end dealing with certain hotspot areas as those are identified by drones and other aircraft that they're utilizing to find those areas. And we want to go ahead and certainly give a shout out to those first responders that have been involved with the fire. Going out and dealing with that this year was an interesting set of circumstances, I would say. This is the third major fire that I've encountered as an elected official, and certainly it's always a very awe-inspiring. It's an awesome thing to see at night when the entire mountain's on fire. When I say awesome, I don't mean it in the slang term. I mean it more of a biblical term, in where you just see it and it's absolutely intimidating, fearsome, scary. You don't know how humans could possibly tame something like that, but somehow Cal Fire, the U.S. Forestry Service, and Orange County Fire Authority certainly did the job and protected all homes in our area. There are still people who are displaced by the fire, and there are some opportunities to help those people, and we'll talk about that a little later in the episode, or we may actually post about that. But there was quite a bit of damage. The one thing I will say as an elected official, I think that our folks probably at home would agree with, is this is a common occurrence. 3 fires on the Ortega Mountains over 12 years is a very common occurrence, and there are certainly ways to manage forestry. So one of the things we'll probably be doing as a city in the not too distant future is, that we are doing right now, is advocating at a federal level for forestry management. We can't have a policy at the federal level that allows fires that get started to simply burn as part of your management plan. We can see the destructive effort and some of the human costs that are associated with that. And unfortunately, we don't have the ability to deal with that here at the city level. That is something that is bigger outside of our jurisdiction, but it certainly impacts us, as we've seen time and time again. I'm very impressed with the city and the residents and the way that they've reacted. They were largely very kind to first responders. I appreciate the professionalism of first responders and understanding the inconvenience and frustration, fear that is inspired by these types of events, especially during evacuations. And I certainly pray for the folks that were impacted either through loss of property or worse during this time period. So, and I think I speak for the entire city as I say that. So that's unfortunate. They're still mopping up, 95% contained. We hope to see all of the first responders, all the firefighters home very, very soon. We've had some comments recently pop up, and I've received some comments with respect to homelessness, open drug use, things of that nature, and have been kind of dealing with education on that part. If you want to go back during the history of maybe, say, the past 12 or 13 years, in 2011, we had Jerry Brown at the state level sign into law AB 109. AB 109 was called a realignment law, and what it did was it shifted the responsibility for imprisoning nonviolent offenders for sometimes felonious crimes to the local jails. It was in response to a lawsuit that the state had lost to an organization that said that the state prisons were overcrowded, which they were. But because there was a financial crisis at the time, the solution that was offered was not to build more prisons, which is a lengthy and expensive process. The response was, let's push that responsibility elsewhere. And unfortunately, that responsibility came in our direction. The county jail systems were never designed to hold people for more than a year. And so what happened almost immediately was the local jail systems were overcrowded. This was easily predictable and certainly something that criminal justice reform advocates saw as a positive, because the same lawsuit that they could prosecute against the state could then in turn be prosecuted against local jails. And so local jail systems that were smart about that certainly implemented programs that would release certain people from prison early, or prison from the jails or prison early. And so this has created this revolving door system that we've been experiencing over the years, which was compounded later on in 2014 with Proposition 47. Proposition 47, which was titled and summaried as the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, literally just reduced the criminal penalties and capped criminal penalties for those that stole under $950 worth of material or were caught using drugs with under a certain amount. So what ended up happening is those crimes ended up becoming misdemeanors only. And because they're misdemeanors only, which is the lowest level of criminal crime you can be convicted of, and because they're nonviolent crimes, these are the types of crimes that became eligible for early release programs that were intended to relieve the prison populations at the jail system level. Now, as time has gone on, what has happened is the state prison population has dropped tremendously. And as a matter of fact, the governor, as part of a cost-cutting measure, has been closing state prisons. As a matter of fact, the Blythe prison here in Riverside County is slated for closure. They're targeting it for closure. That's been delayed. And that is creating a lot of concern amongst those of us who pay attention to law enforcement about the subsequent impacts that it will have on our communities, as we've already seen. The experiment's played out. And while we have received some types of funding in order to provide additional assistance to those that are suffering from homelessness and chronic homelessness, the fact is that the drug epidemic seems to continue to get worse and worse, and police, while they may enforce those crimes to the nth degree, unfortunately, oftentimes the people that are arrested for those crimes return to the streets before the police officers can even finish writing the report. If they go to Southwest Riverside County Detention Center over in Marietta, part of the agreement for that particular facility to be built between the county and the people that lived there at the time to mollify the people about having a prison built in their community, there was an agreement that the people who were released would be offered free transportation to wherever they needed in order to go ahead and get back to certain places. Now, what I've heard very often now is, well, other cities are now transporting criminals and people who look homeless into the city. And that may be true, and we haven't really caught anybody doing it red-handed, but we certainly have enough of that anecdotally to have looked into it multiple times. But more often than not, what you might be seeing is you might be seeing those prisoners being transported willfully from the prison area back to the community that they came from, right? So we may be seeing that happen. There may be some other things that are happening. We caught one city who had decided that they were going to use one of our local hotels to house homeless individuals and put an end to that very quickly once it was discovered. And there's all sorts of shenanigans that other places utilize to deal with their issues. But the reality is there's really only one way to do this in a morally correct way, and that is, number one, hold folks accountable for the laws that they're breaking, and we do that right now, okay? Unfortunately, the punishments that are associated with those crimes are not as aggressive as they probably could be. And there's a proposition that's coming up in this November ballot called Proposition 36. And that proposition would modify some of the parts of Prop 47 to allow law enforcement, specifically the district attorney in our county, to offer more aggressive penalties. And so when you're caught doing something for the fifth time or sixth time, they can prosecute that as a felony. And prosecuting it as a felony means multi-year sentences. Oh, and by the way, this also says that the state would be responsible for housing those individuals. So it would also amend some portions of AB 109. And this means that you would start seeing people go into the prisons, and it would alleviate some of the capacity issues that we're having at our local jails. It's a real good common sense solution. It also allows for those that are arrested for drug-related crimes to attend rehabilitation instead of jail time. And there's even other programs that are available today that have nothing to do with the new proposition, where folks can go through a system of rehabilitation and show over time that they've consistently decided that they're going to exit their cycle of homelessness and addiction, and get educated and even have their criminal record cleared, expunged, which is huge. It's like getting a new life for some of these people. And we've actually seen people that lived on the streets here in the city go through that program, and now they're actually working for the nonprofit that we contract with to do outreach with the homeless people. It's a great story. Dealing with homelessness is a difficult issue. Homelessness in itself is not a crime. And we have to remember that. These are people that either are down on their luck or are leaving bad situations where maybe a spouse is abusive, and sometimes there's kids involved, sometimes there's pets involved. It's a complicated issue when you get down into the face of it, right? It's easy to go ahead and see somebody with a little sign begging for change. Half the time, those people might have perfectly good homes. Maybe not half, but sometimes they have perfectly good homes, and they're just trying not to work, and this is what they do to go ahead and put together money, and it's pretty lucrative. So I do encourage our residents not to give money to folks that are out there panhandling. That is a problematic behavior that when you reward, you'll get more of, and you'll see more of it. It proliferates, right? And then furthermore, it's important to recognize that all of the people, especially some of the newer faces that you see, they go from city to city to city doing the same thing, and they have perfectly good cars and homes and whatnot. So don't be taken on that issue. And even for the folks that do need the money, there are services for folks to get food in the city. That's available. It's available right now, right this minute. You can go and get food in the city. The statistic on the number of people that we found on the streets dead from starvation is 0. That's the reality. 12 years straight, never heard a report. Wow, we found this homeless person. They were absolutely emaciated. They died because of food starvation. Or we get those reports about homeless people. Elderly people before we hear that about homeless people. And people don't recognize that. They see somebody in need and they want to help, and that's a very good feeling. Direct your help to proper resources, places that are going to use that money and that food or that assistance in some way, shape, or form to entice the people to end their cycle of homelessness. That is what we encourage here at the city, and we have those programs. 12 years ago, we had no programs, okay? Says we would clear people out from properties when things got a little messy, but let's be frank, there was no system. Today, the city employs what we call a homeless outreach team. Consists of 2 deputies, consists of a couple of code enforcement officers, consists of our nonprofit organization representatives, and they go around and they address calls for service related to homelessness, and they find the people that are out there struggling sometimes, and take the mom that's down on her luck living out of her car. That is an easy problem to resolve. There are resources for those folks. They're very easily implemented. There's plenty of funding for that. Veterans also, we've got some programs for veterans. The hard thing is the older males typically who are chronically homeless. Once they get acclimated to that, it's hard to convince them, and there may be some mental health issues, there may be some addiction issues, there may be some responsibility issues. Everybody's a little unique, But all of those people require attention, outreach, multiple points of contact. You have to create trust. You have to essentially get into those people's lives and humanize them again and treat them like human beings before they will take a chance and maybe go ahead and decide, well, shoot, this is the third time I'm being arrested, and yeah, I'll be back out on the streets in a little bit, but then all my stuff's going to be gone for the third time, and I'm tired of this. I'm really tired of this. Well, great. We got a program for you. We got a place for you to literally stay, not just a shelter, because the shelters, they take people in at night to get them out of the cold or the heat, and then they push them back out at the end of the day. We have places for these people to actually set their feet, get a foundation, connect them with family, put together their IDs and social security cards, help them with job training, help them with mental health services. All these wraparound services that you hear about other places are actually being implemented. And one of the big differences between our city and other cities is we don't do that once a month, and we don't do that once per quarter, okay? We don't let it accumulate. We do it twice per week, and our guys are out there every day identifying in between, okay? So that's the system that we have here. Now, some people say, well, I'm seeing more and more. I'm seeing this. And yeah, I have to tacitly admit, yeah, I'm starting to see a little more and more too. I make phone calls every day, and I see it more and more. What I'll say is, without the programs that the city's implemented over the past roughly 8 years, the problem would have probably been 5 times worse, at least 5 times worse. The entire channel, San Jacinto channel, when we came into office, one of the first things, there were structures in that channel when I came into office that we had code enforcement deal with. And they had been instructed, don't touch it because it's another jurisdiction, okay? We changed that. And that was part of the leadership change that happened a little over a decade ago. We were warned, if you push the people out of the bushes, they're going to be out on the streets. It's going to make things look worse. And we could have gone that route. It would have been easy because when they're in the bushes, people don't see it. We couldn't allow that. That's not moral. It's not right. If you know anything about homelessness, if you've been chronically homeless for more than 3 years, I believe it is, then your life expectancy drops off by 20%. It's a rough life. It's not just a public safety concern. It's a health and human safety concern. So cities are where you deal with that. And that's our responsibility. And so we're proud of the work that we've done. The Anchor has seen this year alone over 100 street exits. Some of those people relapse, 100%, no question. I mean, not 100%, but there are some relapses, and sometimes people have to go through the system 2 or 3 times. But eventually, people get their help. And we also humanize these people. So this group is very tight-knit. So if we have somebody that's going through the system who unfortunately passes in some way, shape, or form, that person's honored, and the best parts of their lives are highlighted. This is something that I think is important as we try to go ahead and bring these people back into society. So it's a little touchy-feely in some respects, and it's a little tough, because of the law and order aspect. But you can't just solve the problems with carrots, and you can't just solve the problem with sticks. You need the sticks and the carrots. You need them working together. And we hopefully have put together a balanced program that we continue refining and adjusting, and certainly there's room for improvement. We certainly do take comments from all folks and suggestions, but we're working on the system, and it certainly is a high priority for the city and something we're very proud of. All right. So want to talk a little bit about some of the events. I do want to mention this weekend, we do have the Oktoberfest that's happening at Launch Point. Now, if you hadn't been to the Oktoberfest at Launch Point, a lot of fun. There's games, there's bands, there's certainly a lot to do there. So you should definitely check it out. There's 2 segments that you'll be able to participate in. The early segment runs from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., both on Saturday and Sunday this weekend. And there'll be specific bands playing during that portion of the segment. It's free for people to attend. There's a charge for parking, I believe, $10. But it's free for people to attend. The evening session, which has multiple bands, it runs from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., both on Saturday and Sunday again, is a different type of event. There's a VIP charge, I believe that's $65, and then a $20 charge for general admission. I'll be there on Sunday. I might be there Saturday too, I'm not sure. I will be wearing lederhosen. So if you want to get a fun photo with the mayor in lederhosen, maybe come out and show up and certainly introduce yourself, and I'll be happy to go ahead and hang out with you, have a beer and a little prost between the two of us, and that'd be great, right? But certainly a fun event and something that we're doing to help highlight Launch Point, which has been just a source of public pride since its construction and opening since 2019. We also have on October 12th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Downtown, in our historic downtown, the Trunk or Treat that's coming up. So if you have small kids and maybe you live, I don't know, say like Tuscany Hills, and you live on a hill, and not a lot of people give out candy because you're going 45 degrees uphill, and the kids are complaining, and you're pushing a stroller, and you could skip that. You can come down to our downtown Main Street. The cars park, open the trunks, and it's very easy. You go from trunk to trunk to trunk to go ahead and fill your kid's sack with candy, and it's absolutely amazing. Get dressed up. There'll be lots of people in costume. The community loves to come together to make that happen, and we look forward to seeing you out there too. What else we got? Those are the big things. I think I covered everything, guys. Yes. Yeah. There is also the State of the City that's coming up next month, October 17th. We're selling out quickly. The State of the City is essentially where you get the mayor who provides an update about the city. It is an expanded format of what you're seeing here with videos and a lot more information. It's a little more structured, but this year will be a lot of fun. Last time I was mayor, I actually jumped out of an airplane in a business suit. And so we'll be doing something fun, not like that, but something like that, a little bit, and you'll be able to see it. But largely we use the State of the City address to not only inform the public, but also to kind of put out there some of the best things that are happening in the city, what's to come, and maybe inspire people who may be interested in investing in this community. So it's a really fun event. We love to have the people out, and if you'd like to attend, you can certainly check that out. The Chamber of Commerce controls the ticket selling on that, so certainly check in with them. It'll be at Pins and Pockets. The capacity there is about 320 people, if I'm not mistaken. We got 220 people signed up to go already, so tickets are going fast. All right. Excuse me. Okay. So let's take some questions here. We got a bunch of them lined up. I got a question here. Any updates on the mega warehouse? There's one. Okay. So there were two mega warehouses that were kind of in planning. One of them on the north end of the lake over off of Nichols Road. And another one that was planned kind of in the back basin over off of Corydon. The one off in Corydon sounds like it's no longer moving, and sounds like they're actively looking to go ahead and get rid of that property. Whereas the one over on Nichols Road seems to be continuing to go through the planning process. And, unfortunately, our city's general plan set things up so that it set aside some land that was near the creek area. It was difficult to develop, and they basically designated that as industrial property, but it's a big swath of land. And so you have a developer that, and times have changed, right? Like after COVID, people started ordering online a lot more, and these logistics centers became more and more important, especially if you're looking to go ahead and get your stuff in a fairly short time period. So folks like Amazon have been investing in these logistics centers, and developers, as a result, people that own land, have been planning these mega warehouses. Now, I can't tell you what's going to happen with the one on Nichols Road. As a matter of fact, I'm legally prohibited to take a position, but I can tell you that it's still in process, and it's something that we're working through right now. So we're going to hear from the residents, we're going to hear from the developer, and then the council as a whole will make a decision. The impacts that may occur as they're associated with the mega warehouse, staff will do their best to go ahead and mitigate those impacts. That's required by California environmental quality laws. Man, sorry. Got a frog in my throat. Um, and obviously, this is something that's going to be an important factor for our city. I've heard from folks who are concerned that we're going to become a Fontana, for instance. That's not the plan for Lake Elsinore. It really isn't. But there has to be some sort of in between, right? I mean, at some point, if industry is going to shift away from retail malls, where these mega malls will end up becoming empty, little surely, but slowly but surely, you'll start seeing that mall concept turn into kind of an old '90s concept, I think, over time. And so you kind of got to be ahead of the curve, and you got to start thinking about those things. Maybe the location that's proposed isn't the right location. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe they can go ahead and create the screening and the road improvements that may actually leave the area better than it is today, because we certainly have issues with some of the bridges and the creeks and the washes and the interchanges and whatnot. But I don't know. I don't know what's proposed. I have a general idea of the building. I have no idea what the offsites are going to look like. And I have concerns. The biggest one probably being traffic. So as we get closer to that, we'll end up making a decision. But at this time, there's no recruiting. There's no economic development effort. There's no, softening of laws to allow mega warehouses. All of that none of that's accurate. As a matter of fact, we just recently strengthened the laws associated with building large warehouses, anything over 250,000 square feet, minimum setbacks for frontage, additional guidelines for noise attenuation and mitigation, lighting, and a number of other issues. And certainly that makes development of those types of projects more difficult. But it also clearly communicates, which is fair, the expectations that the council has. So check out the Good Neighbor program. I'm one of the proud, co-founder, co-writers of that, and certainly supported it, and so did the council unanimously. So you can take that for what that's worth. Let's see. What will replace the old Rite Aid location? The old Rite Aid location is privately owned. And while the city does hire an economic development person who actively looks to replace or help go ahead and put together tenants with property owners, that is up to the free markets. It's the same as if you have a residential landlord who is trying to rent out their house. The city doesn't get involved with that. We have no part in it. We don't set the rents. We don't set the terms. We don't decide who goes there, who doesn't go there. The only thing that we can do is we can set uses, right? So Rite Aid was kind of like a convenience store setup, and it's certainly zoned for that. So we hope that whoever goes there kind of matches that usage. But there's probably other uses that are also allowed for in our zoning guidelines. I don't have any special information about activity that's there, and the real estate brokers that are working those particular projects don't report to the city and don't have to. There's no requirement. That's a function of the free markets. So don't have any information on that. If we hear anything and they do confirm and they do sign, we'll announce it and we'll celebrate it, But at this time, we don't have anything. What about the lake? Can you also can you guys make colleges? Oh, okay. So quick update on the lake. The microcystin levels in our most recent measurements have dropped below detectable levels in all portions of the lake. The city continues to implement a multi-faceted system of dealing with algae and the harmful algae blooms that have impacted the lake over the years. And our goal is to go ahead and get a pristine lake that has great water clarity and no harmful algae blooms that can persist throughout the summer. It's a tall order. It's never happened in our lake. People who say that it did happen, well, I will say, there was never been a time where we could test for microcystins. As a matter of fact, they didn't even measure microcystins before 2014. I think there was a university that came up with this, and then it became an issue. We are applying algicide in a liquid form it was a weekly basis, and and we're going to be shifting over from a liquid-based algicide to a granular-based algicide. Why? Well, the granular-based algicide will go through the water column and then hit the bottom. And one of the things that we're targeting is the source of a lot of the phosphates and nitrates that naturally occur within the lake because of the sediment and some of the dead fish and old algae. The algae leaves remnants and whatnot too. And over years, without any type of flooding or some way to go ahead and naturally clear those types of things, they accumulate. And so this is part of what we call nutrient loading in the lake. If we can break that up and actually mitigate that, then that improves the water quality over the summertime. You get less of the harmful algae blooms. So we're going to be working on that over the late fall and winter time, maybe even early spring. In addition to that, there'll be another type of application called Foslock. Foslock literally is like a clay type of system that has a chemical compound that captures phosphates that are in the water column. And as it goes through the water column, it combines with the phosphates and turns into this inert material, which means that it's not active. It doesn't turn it into anything else, and hits the bottom of the lake. And it makes the water column cleaner, which means that there's less food for the algae to feed off of. And with less food to feed off of, you starve the algae, and it doesn't occur. So that means better water clarity. That means less harmful algae blooms. That means less microcystins, and you get a recreational lake that's clearer. And you do that over the fall and the spring months and whatnot, and then during the summer months, you're largely applying the algicide. And of course, through all of this, the nanobubbler, right? So the nanobubbler came in, pilot project. We took kind of a toe in the water sort of application for the nanobubbler that we picked up. We lovingly referred to him as Mr. Bubbles. Well, we probably should have called him Baby Bubbles, because the results that came from the nanobubbler system were so positive that we decided to go ahead and pick up two more. And the two other nanobubblers will be they'll be out there by early October, okay? And those guys have a capacity to pump 5 times more water process 5 times more water than the current nanobubbler system. So we'll have 3 nanobubbler barges on the lake processing different parts of the lake, and we'll have that running all throughout the summer and whatnot. And the hope is that between all of these different programs, and maybe others as we continue looking at this and make adjustments and whatnot, that we're going to actually have a lake that is something we can be proud of. It's not going to, it's kind of interesting because we started implementing this year, but I didn't have expectations that the results were going to be so good so fast. I have never in my life, I've lived here 37 years, I've never in my life seen the lake have water clarity that goes down to 16 feet. And we actually measured it using a scientific method. I've never seen that before. I've never seen fish swimming around in our lake. I mean, really. Says you couldn't see that before. And we may have had some challenges that popped up as a result of it. Some of that filamentous algae was certainly problematic and unexpected. But we're going to continue working, guys. And we're going to continue working until we get it right. Let's see here. What do we got? Do not remove the motocross track. Motocross track is a private operation. They have an approval through the city and a permit to go ahead and operate. They're allowed to permit. They're allowed to operate so long as they can. They can operate there for as long as the underlying landowner allows them to operate. As they negotiate and a rental agreement for the use of that land. City has no intention to get rid of them or move them or change things there. But these are private party individuals that to go ahead and make, they get to make their private property choices. I will say that the Lake Elsinore Grand Prix is going to be running there, I believe, in November. I don't have the information on hand, but The Grand Prix is coming back to Lake Elsinore, but it'll be run entirely on the motocross track, and there's lots of reasons for that. We can go through that in another episode. What will replace the old Walmart location? So the old Walmart location was recently acquired by Inland Motorsports. Inland Motorsports sells boats, ATVs, motorcycles, things of that nature. But they don't intend to use the entire space. So there's some portions of that space that will be demised and put out for lease, and they've been put out for lease. I don't have anything to announce yet, and I certainly try not to talk about potential tenants until those leases are signed, because it can cause problems. So let's say, and this is not at all real. I'll use like a really weird example. Say McDonald's wanted to go ahead and occupy the space, okay? And the people at Burger King heard that, and they didn't like that. Burger King could come in and try to go ahead and open up a space there, and then jack up the rent, and then nobody goes there, okay? You know, if the city gets involved and starts talking about some of these private negotiations, it messes up that private negotiation. So I've heard some really promising things. I think some retailers that residents would be really excited to hear about. There's also challenges with that particular center in ways that, you know, the private property owner is going to have to resolve on their own. But we're relatively welcome to whoever's going to come in there. There's not really any type of special permitting that's needed from the city to go ahead and do anything there unless they decide to change the building in a substantial way. So for the most part, it's kind of on them, and we have an economic development director who checks in with them and tries to send them, you know, people who are interested to contact the city and say, hey, we're looking to move to your city. Where do you think we should go? And we'll connect them with these. That's the way that works. Beyond that, it's up to them, and we certainly try to make the rest of the process as easy as possible. What's going on with the sports complex that was supposed to be built next to the Storm Stadium? Good question. I can tell you that the developer still intends to move forward, and that the funding, I'm told that the funding is still available, and that there's a redesign that's necessary because of a particular situation that I'm not allowed to discuss, but folks probably know, and it's out there, right? If you start digging and you find certain things, and sometimes your project stops because you find those things. And so I don't want to publicly go ahead and talk about what those things were, because there could be an impact to the things that are found. I know this sounds like I'm talking in circles, but unfortunately I've been informed by our legal that we really can't talk about it or discuss it or put it out there. But just to let folks know that the people that are involved with that project are very deep-pocketed. They're very committed to the city of Lake Elsinore in multiple ways. And that they have expressed to the city they have every intention to go ahead and get to the finish line, but they've been put under very difficult circumstances that are not easily resolved, and unfortunately there's no timelines that apply to that resolution, at least not now, but there's legislation happening that may change that. We'll see. I'm sorry if I missed it. High schools, are we expanding them? Any new ones? I've heard they're too overcrowded. The city really doesn't deal with the high school situation or issue. I've not heard that there's an overcrowding at high schools, nor have I heard of any plans to build any new high schools. But that's definitely a question we could go ahead and pose to Lake Elsinore Unified School District Board of Trustee members. The news that I've gotten is largely the number of people that are having kids has declined, and that because of that, some of the schools that we had required developers to build in the past, the district had released them from that obligation because they didn't need them. They weren't going to staff them. They weren't going to open the new locations, and so there was no need for us to go ahead and have that requirement, and they were developed into other things like parks or more houses. So I don't have any information on that, but if I hear anything, I'll be happy to go ahead and pass it along. Please add more streetlights to Chestnut Street. It is way too dark at night and unsafe. Okay. Noted. We can pass that along to our engineering staff and take a look at that. Thank you for the comment. Any news on the golf course? So last I heard, there was an agreement between a pro golfer and the current ownership to acquire the golf course. And then the golf course flooded, of course, this year, and that set back those negotiations. But I don't think they've been called off. The city hasn't really been contacted or looped in terms of what's happening and what's going to happen next. There's been no applications or exploration on modifications or anything to that space. And I can tell you that that golf courses largely are usually amenities that are in addition to something like a hotel or something that makes money. And they don't normally run profitably by themselves. So we don't have anything new on that. There's no formal applications that have been submitted. I don't have any kind of rumors or I haven't been approached by anyone to go ahead and talk about what they'd like to do with the property. So at this time, I don't have any information on that. When is Corridon Gateway getting done? So Corridon Gateway was stopped because the developer and the owner of the property ran into financial troubles and went through a foreclosure action. And so the commercial property is a little complicated, right? So you have the underlying ownership and developer, and then you have financing structures to go ahead and do some of the offsite offsite impacts like the streets, curbs, gutters, electricity, power poles, undergrounding things, and so there's money that's spent up front by basically the master developer, which creates lots that are marketable to organizations like the car wash that opened up or the restaurant that's planned for the area and various other stores. I think there's some industrial buildings that are on that site too that stopped midway. And so they've got to get through they got to get through that bankruptcy sort of foreclosure type of legal issue. I've heard that the bank is certainly working to go ahead and kind of release some of the property so that the tenants that were interested in building the stuff can finish building their stuff. But it's a messy situation. It's a private situation. Again, this is something, I think there's some people who think that the city funds these projects. We don't. We don't fund these projects at all. There's not a penny of city taxpayer money that goes into these things. We don't necessarily choose what's decided to be built there. We receive applications from folks that ask, can we build this here? It fits within your zoning, and if everything fits, then the city says, okay, that makes sense. We'll approve that. But it's on their dime, everything, including the application process and even the cost for our staff to review their application. All of that goes on the backs of the developer. So we're not a party to that. I can only tell you what I've heard through the grapevine. What is the overall vision for Lake Elsinore? We also need programs for our teens. We have programs for our teens. If you're not familiar with the neighborhood center down off of Graham Avenue, there's certainly programs that are there. There's also going to be funding put towards rehabilitating the Boys and Girls Club over in Albert Hill, and the Boys and Girls Club intends to reopen that center and run it out of there once the rehabilitation is done. Thank you to County Supervisor Karen Spiegel for associating funds to that area. Also, our Councilmember Bob McGee was very instrumental in terms of negotiating that through the county. He's a county employee, so he has the contacts and the pull to go ahead and pull that off, which was great. And that's going to be a net positive for our teens. But there's all kinds of programs, and I encourage folks to basically kind of explore the city website and figure kind of there's lots of stuff. It just depends on what you're trying to do. There's also some things that you can do on the other side in the county. We've got skate parks, basketball courts, indoor pickleball, indoor basketball. There's all sorts of programs that are out there. So I encourage folks to go ahead and reach out to our community center or our community services department and do a little research and digging and find the things that are out there. We put out a whole slate of activities for the summer, and certainly try to serve the community, and especially our teens and young children. Any new businesses coming to LE? Well, we just cut the ribbon on a brand new restaurant, Le Rendezvous, here on the downtown Main Street. Now, this is an interesting fact, and I actually said this, and people thought it was funny. This is the first French restaurant that is open in Southwest Riverside County. The first French-inspired French cuisine restaurant. So Menifee, Temecula, Marietta. Sorry, guys, you didn't get that. We did. And I hope our residents certainly check it out. The prices are great. The portions are wonderful. The food is amazing, absolutely amazing. If you haven't had French food, that's bistro. That is basically what you're looking at. I've tried the seared duck breast, as well as I went for breakfast and had the stuffed French toast. They have a mimosa flight, which my wife and I enjoyed. So definitely check it out. Everything that's there is first class, A-rated. Probably one of the nicest restaurants to come to the city in a long time. And, it's here. So if you want it to stay here and you want more like that, then hopefully the residents will support that, right? And we'll see more of it. If they do really well, if they're looking to expand, you're going to probably see a lot more of it. And I certainly do hope that the public supports them, because great people. I met the owners, absolutely wonderful people. The facility, just is amazing and first class. I've seen it front and back. It's a Class A place. So certainly go with that. Any plans to develop around the lake, like walking and bike trails? The walking and bike trails are in plan. You got the Marietta Creek Trail. You've got a couple of different ways to get around the lake. I think some of the trails, or the walkable trails that people want, which would be like on the lake, because of the nature of our lake's expansion and contraction, depending on whether there's wet weather or not wet weather, would be really difficult to go ahead and create something that was right along the lake. If you're talking about developing out complete streets, maybe along, around the lake, well, that's possible somewhat around Corydon or maybe, near the levee and whatnot. But it gets really difficult as we get near portions of lakeshore that aren't close to the lake, or as you get to the portions of lakeshore that run alongside Country Club Heights and the drop-off to the lake. You got Army Corps engineering and issues that make expanding that road very difficult, right? I mean, it's possible. It's just very expensive and difficult, and there's no funding for it. But then you get to Grand and maybe Riverside Drive, for instance, and those Riverside Drive's under the state jurisdiction. We really don't have jurisdiction over that or on improving that entire area. And then Grand Avenue is in the county altogether, right? Most of it's in the county altogether. So the idea of creating a circular bike trail that goes all the way around, at this point right now, we don't have the funding or the jurisdiction or any way to accomplish that. And even if we did something like some other places, like out in Hawaii, all the beaches of Hawaii are in the public domain. You're allowed to go on out there. Man, that wouldn't be very popular politically. We'll start there, right? There's a bunch of people who built houses and have their docks, and private property rights are very important out here. But again, with the contraction and expansion of the lake, I don't know how that works. I really don't know how that works very well. So unfortunately, we do incorporate biking and walking trails as part of our Complete Streets program. But if you're asking if there's going to be a big push to go ahead and make that happen over a short period of time, largely you're going to be looking at Marietta Creek Trail, the levee, connecting to our outlet, the outlet for the lake, and then connecting to the greater beyond, and that's largely what you're going to see in terms of biking and trails. What do we need to get more involved? More involved with cleaning up, more involved with making our city look nice. There are a ton of opportunities that come up regularly to go ahead and help. You certainly can volunteer through our community services department. We do outreach and whatnot. There's a number of nonprofits and churches. One of the local ones in the downtown area every Saturday is out cleaning up trash in the downtown area. They've adopted the downtown area. Folks can start their own initiatives. There's just a ton of different ways that you can help. And if you need to help coordinate some of that, certainly contact our community services department to go ahead and get more information about that. But it's out there. All of that's out there, and there's lots of great people. The Women's Club, you have just Rotary and the Lions Club and Veteran Services. There's the Pantry, or Hope. There's all sorts of different ways that people can volunteer and help. Citizens Corps. I could go on and on and on. More car shows at LE would be sweet. Note taken. Thank you. Sprouts or Trader Joe's at the outlets. It's up to the outlets. The outlets can land that deal. It certainly would be nice, but I do hear that Trader Joe's and Sprouts are both looking in the city right now. They have not found placement. I think they're looking for a new location. They want something custom, right? Both options would want something custom or something that fits perfect for them. The lake looks beautiful. Thank you so much. You do. All right. I think they know at this point. The outlets is approached. I can only speak for myself personally, but the outlets, the owners of the outlets have approached us a couple of times to potentially switch the center over to either residential or industrial, and there's just no interest in that. And I don't think the people of Lake Elsinore are interested in that. There are also people that are out there that have told me personally that they feel like they could revitalize that center. It needs an investment of money, but it also needs somebody that has the relationships with retailers who can actually bring groups of people together, groups of tenants together at the same time, and that's part of the problem. So, I don't think a petition would help, but I think people are voting with their dollars, and that sends a message too. What about Topgolf? Any hope for one in Lake Elsinore? That's a nice idea. Topgolf would actually work out really well at the outlet center for somebody who wanted to go ahead and invest, the money into it. And my understanding is it costs about $50 million to go ahead and actually build one out. So it's a big investment. But I think the outlet center, especially with like all that parking on the north end of it, would be a great place to put something like that. I don't expect the current owners to basically do that. I really don't. Maybe the next guys. I've also heard some other folks throw out some interesting ideas about the use of that space. So stay tuned. There could be something good that comes along in the not too distant future. What's up with the fire camp off of Grand Avenue? I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. Let's see here. That's it. I just need the palm fronds from the city's palm trees picked up from my street. The stack is about 6 feet high. That's tall. It's really tall. You can certainly, sorry?
Alert LE.
Oh, yeah. You can certainly use Alert LE to go ahead and report that if you'd like. And I'm sure our public works staff would be out there in a hot minute to get rid of that. That's not a good thing. And can we actually speak about the city, the demographic construction on Main and Graham? Yeah. I mean, what we have right now is the current construction of the new and expanded City Hall. The City Hall that we currently have is roughly about 7,500 square feet. Compare that to Temecula City Hall, and I believe Temecula City Hall is somewhere around 90,000 square feet. We're cramped. We're really small, and we're growing. We don't have enough space to facilitate all of our city staff, which right now our city staff are strewn out across 3 different facilities, which is ridiculous. It's just an absolute embarrassment. We're using an old church for city council meetings, right? They're not modern facilities. They don't provide all of the accommodations that you normally would have for folks, and so there's problems there. So we're building a new city hall, and the city hall is going to have a modern feel because it is being built in a modern age, but it's also going to have elements from our past. And I've heard about the city hall a couple of different times, but the bottom line is that we were well past time for city hall, and it's going to be something that is going to benefit us into the distant future. I think it's going to be a turning point for this community. So I'm really happy to see it going up and being built so quickly. That project will be finished in about, I would say, 14 months, somewhere around there, 12 to 14 months, depending on how fast they can go ahead and keep things moving. And, hopefully supply chains continue to go ahead and be moving frequently. It's crazy that we even have to talk about that, but, that's the last 4 years have been kind of interesting, and it is an election year. Let's see here. Any new stores? No, we already talked about that. All right. All right, guys. Well, it's been fun. If there's any other questions that folks have, you can certainly go ahead and post those online. I'm happy to go ahead and continue answering questions as folks ask them. Love to be an open book. And tune in next month as we have our next Lake Elsinore Live. Have your questions ready. If I didn't get to your questions, I apologize, but we'll do better next time. And thank you so much for joining us. Until next time.